Hey guys, today we're going to be working on a Memphis Cityscape, and this is my original one that you might have seen me do before. So we're going to get started right now. All you'll need is some Sharpies, maybe some crayons, and some watercolors if you have any on hand. This is a heavyweight sheet of paper, maybe about 80 pounds. A lot of times we might use something like cardstock for our drawing, and we're going to start in the very middle. I started with a Sharpie, but you can use a crayon, starting with a triangle in the center. If I ever go too fast, then just pause it and then pick back up when you're ready. So I started with a triangle right there in the middle of my paper. Then I'm going to add an extra diagonal line from the top of the pyramid out to the middle space, and then another diagonal line to the base of the pyramid. That turned in from a plain triangle into a pyramid 3D form. Okay, just straightening up a few lines right there. A lot of times after this, well, we're going to have some water on the side. So I'll just go on and do that water line over there on the left. And I'll do like the riverbank. If you've ever been downtown, you might have a riverbank. You might have like a little walking path. So you could do a little walking path, but of course it's just whatever you think, whatever you'd like to do. Okay, we're going to have some buildings over on the right side. We're also going to have a bridge above the water. Let's go on with our bridge right now. A flat line, straight line right across the water. It's going to be the bridge. The bridge is going to need some supports between where the cars would drive and where the bridge would meet the water and the ground underneath. Two supports. And a really low, flat, spread out, lowercase m, which represents the Memphis Bridge. Every time I do this, it looks a little bit different. A lot of times I do another M that's kind of different space, and then I will add some little lines in between those two M spaces, just for that kind of interesting effect. I might also add some vertical supports between the bottom of the bridge and the top of that little M section. This could be done with black crayon if you want to. I would not suggest black marker if you're going to, like washable marker, if you use watercolor, because then it'll make it kind of get kind of blurry. On the right side, we're going to do some buildings. A lot of times people like to do the Le Bonheur Hospital or another building that you recognize from downtown. These will just be long, tall rectangles. They can go either to the bottom of your paper, or you can add a little ground line here if you want to. Whatever your preference is. Then I'll add another building a little bit taller just to make it kind of interesting. Yours could be a little bit shorter or whatever, just to make it kind of nice and interesting. And there are my two buildings. We can add windows in these buildings because a lot of times we do the Le Bonheur Children's Hospital. A lot of times we do a little leaning over heart. That's what represents that hospital. That sits up on top. You can use your black Sharpie if you are going to be watercoloring. Otherwise, you could use crayons, and the crayons will provide a border for your watercolor also. Or you could do a washable marker if you're not going to be using watercolors. The washable markers will kind of bleed and kind of spread out if you use watercolor with them. So I'm adding some windows in all of these buildings. This is going to be like a double door at the bottom of this building. Adding some long windows in the hospital. So a lot of times on this project, it's a good time to just kind of be creative and have a good time, and make your own choices about what you want, because a lot of these are going to be kind of bright, fun, imaginary kind of colors. And every time I do this project, I do something different. Look, on this one, I'm going to do a little heart for my door, for a little door handle there. Okay, so that's pretty much all the drawing I'm going to do now. At this point, you could use some crayons first, or you can go on into watercolors. That heart at the top, okay, let's go back to this paper. So you can see that some of my stuff ended up being crayons, some of it ended up being watercolors, and it's okay to use imaginary colors. Like you might not have ever seen a green sky or a yellow pyramid, so it's okay to kind of be different. So now I'm going to go on and start making some choices. I think it usually does better if I go on and use crayons first, but I was excited about watercoloring. So I'm going to go on and know for sure that my water in the river is going to be blue. If you wanted to, before you do this, you could go on and do your crayon effects and then watercolor on top of your crayons. Of course, those of you who decide you're just going to use regular markers, that's okay too. Remember when we're watercoloring to have a good mixture of water with your paint. So sometimes you might go back and you might feel like, ooh, I need to add a little bit more water to my brush. Other times you might need to add a little bit more paint just so that it makes it a little bit darker. If I have blue water, I probably don't want a blue sky. For my sky, I will add some white clouds with my crayon, but you do not have to add those clouds with your crayon. That's just going to be something interesting. And notice when you color in with crayon, you won't be able to see it right now, but when we actually add our watercolor on top, I think we're really going to like that effect. I'm going to also add some little white details onto the red Lebanon heart. And I'm going to watercolor that red Lebanon heart first. But you could just use a crayon if you want to. The crayon would give you a nice bold color. It's a little bit hard to see at first. We're going to have to add a little more paint. Sometimes our watercolor might bleed out of that Sharpie line, and that's okay. Do your best to stay inside the lines, but it's okay if it comes out a little bit. So my sky is going to end up being kind of a sunset, orangey, yellow kind of sky. Starts right there above where the water line is. It's going to start out being pretty light colored, but we can add more color to it later. Okay, so I'm just speeding this up because I'm just finishing out the sky right there, and then we're going to make our decision of what we're going to do with our crayons and with our kind of building colors also. So let's go on. I'm going to just choose any color is fine. You can use what you already know. I'm going to use a light, kind of a bright cerulean blue for this building, and I've given some space between my water, and then I'm going to have this blue building over here. Try and color as neatly as possible, and then I'm going to also I'm going to kind of decide what I want to do for my next building also. So use what you know about your color theory, which is our color wheel. Our complementary colors are orange and blue here, so these are good kind of colors to mix together and kind of make some nice big contrast. Warm colors, red, orange, and yellow, and then cool colors, green, blue, and purple. So our next one is going to be purple. You can make whatever color choices you want, but just kind of remember, you know, if I had, like I said, if I had a blue water, I might not want a blue sky right there because it could kind of run together and get a little distracting. So I'm going to go on and color in more right here on the building. Again, pause it if you need to. And then we're going to go to our next part. So now I've finished my purple building, and I'm going to decide now what I want to do in the space between my river and my buildings. I'm going to go on and just, since it is ground right there, I'm going to go on and make some grass. My grass can be green. You can use any colors. You don't even have to use crayons. If you would rather use watercolors, that's okay too. Okay, so we're going to finish that green out all over. Try and be as neat as possible, but if you need to go back over it later with another layer of crayons or watercolors, that's okay. I'm going to go on and continue my green right down here below the buildings also. And then I think I'm going to go on and I will do my pyramid. And I don't really know. I'm going to just test this out. This will be a yellow pyramid, even though I have kind of an orangey yellow sky. I'm going to just try that and see how it looks. This color was called Dandelion. And we're going to just press as hard as we can to kind of make it a nice, pretty color. Fill in all those available spaces. And now I think I'm going to be ready to watercolor some more. So I will watercolor my little walking path. This could be any color. I chose purple on this just to make it kind of interesting. Adding a little bit more paint. Remember, you want your paint and your water to have a good balance so you don't have too many puddles. And then I'm going to use a skinnier paintbrush, I think, on these for my hospital windows. And I'm going to use kind of a lime green color for the windows of the hospital. Just water, a little bit of paint, and then spread them out all over those windows. Water, a little bit of paint, and then back over to my paper. Okay, I have enough water on there to keep on going. A little bit more paint, finishing that out. And then my door is actually not going to be green. My door is going to be kind of a grayish color, which is just going to be a mixture of my water and black watercolor. Now for my purple building, I'm going to have to experiment a little bit. And purple, we're going to just try it out and see how it looks with this red-orange color in our windows. I think that'll kind of stand out and be very interesting. Both of these are secondary colors. Green, purple, and orange are all secondary colors because they were primary colors mixed together. You can use all sorts of different paint schemes and ideas to decide how you want your painting to turn out. You get a little bit of paint from that and spread it over to these other windows. And I'm going to also do my doors that orangey color also, just to finish it out. So now you can either let it dry a little bit, or you can go back and keep on adding if you feel like your sky needs a little bit more watercolor on it, or maybe you want to use some crayons to make some little wave lines in the river. You can do anything you'd like to at this point to kind of finish up your painting and make it just like you want it. And then give it some time to dry. You might decide you want to come back and do anything else on it. But I hope you've had fun doing this little project with me and enjoying some time making some art at home. Thank y'all so much. Hope I can see some of your creations. I'm not sure how we can organize a way for me to see those, but I would really love to see if any of you end up doing a Memphis Cityscape at home. And remember, you don't have to just follow my directions. You can kind of be creative with your own ideas. Thanks.